Hey guys, welcome to another edition of On Social, the show that talks about everything that has to do with live broadcasting, video streaming, social media, how to get your video out there to the world and be successful at it in a professional manner. As you guys know who I am, but we have back with us making his return. And no, this is not Jeff, even though he might led you to believe that last week. We have Mr. Marty McPadden from podjam.tv. Welcome back, sir.
Hello, Stephen. How are you? And yeah, contrary to any rumors out there, I am actually Marty. I am not Jeff.
So it's
So
funny
even though we
because
don't appear at the same time.
yeah, Jeff, the last couple weeks because you've been traveling, which we'll get into that later with some of the stuff that you're doing. Jeff had stated that he told everybody. I think it was right before we went off the air. Somebody could verify that for me. He said maybe Marty and I are the same person because lately it's been like when you're out, he's in, and when he's out, you're in. So maybe before the end of the year, we'll get all three of us back in the saddle again. But who knows,
We'll
right?
prove it. That's right. You
It,
never know.
it's the on social conspiracy theory. So now we got to do a hashtag on social conspiracy. Hashtag on social conspiracy. Now everybody's going to start tweeting that out. And our social media gal, she's going to sit there and she's going to go, "What is this on social conspiracy thing?"
Oh
I'll be
boy.
like, "It's a long story. You got to watch the show."
Blame Steven.
Anyways, you've been doing some remote broadcasting because that's what we're going to talk about today. Is some remote
hmm
broadcasting or dealing with a remote broadcasting, remote production situation
hmm
when you can't control the situation. You can do the best that you can to be prepared for it, but doesn't mean you'll always be prepared for it. And so let's start with a little bit of what happened at. So you've been to two parties so far, right? You've done
Yes.
okay.
So been to Atlanta and but I got stories for both.
That's what I'm
Been to
saying. Let's
Atlanta
start
and
with Atlanta
December.
because you had a few nightmares with that, and then we'll get into the good story, which is when you were in Denver. Because I think people need to see, like, again, changing venue to venue, and we've got some video footage we're going to show.
Yep.
Um, Going venue to venue and not having control can really put a damper on the party, so to speak.
Right, and dem like, I can in fact, I can roll some of the dem I got some of the Atlanta footage, I can just
Yeah, see if we
roll it
can
while
roll
I'm
that a little
talking
bit.
over a little bit, yeah. But this is what I use, Wirecast gear, and I'll show you in dem but this was in Atlanta. Beautiful location, it was outdoors on a rooftop. You can see my setup with the small monitor, the Wirecast gearbox, and I'll get into a little bit more, when we get into the Denver footage. And I use a computer, and computer is mainly used to bring in Instagram, and I'll show you again on the I have a better shot of it when we show the Denver footage. Um, but this gives you an idea of what I use and the setup I use, and I bring all this with me, and this is the rear of it, and hopefully it's transmitting well. I know there's a little breakup on the picture there, but the back of the unit there. And what I like about the Wirecast gearbox, it's all one unit. It's basically a specialized PC with embedded Wirecast, and that's one of the advantages of a box like this for the road because you bring it all, you put it in a case, and everything's right there, and you know what you got. The little monitor I use on the side there just to see the interface, and it makes it very very easy to use on the road. Um, and so that's a huge advantage. But this part here that I'm showing, this worked just fine. The Wirecast gear performed beautifully. It was very easy to hook up, and so this worked fine that you're seeing here. It's when we got to the monitors that was the real issue. Let me just switch to my other shot here. Um, when we got to the monitors, that was the other issue. So normally, I have the Wirecast gear and I have I set up a playlist and I'm showing sponsored messages of the party. In this case, it's Verizon related messages with 5G, and I show Instagram. And so I'm going back and forth with it, and I broadcast it out to various monitors. And some of these parties have anywhere from 3 to 5 monitors, and we these large, like 60-inch LCD monitors that we'll use. And in this case, in Atlanta, we're reliant on other companies to come in with the equipment, with the monitors, set it up, do all the wiring. And in this case, they were relying on HDMI. And I told the story before. HDMI, you do not want to do long runs. So we had
Right.
to make a long story short in this instance. They came in. I'm not sure if they even knew what the venue was, but they tried to do the runs, and we had a heck of a time. And really, none of the monitors really worked. So we were able to get we were playing with it right up to the game time, right up to party time, right into the party, we were still messing around with it. Couldn't get it to work, so what I did was I actually went direct to the monitor that was closest to me, at least had that, and had control over that, and then 2 other monitors, we had a couple of extra laptops, and so the sponsored messaging, I had it built into a PowerPoint, and I just created a PowerPoint on the fly, had it rotate, loaded up on these laptops, and actually powered the monitors directly. And this goes into the thing that we talked about last time we were on talking about the Atlanta show, is having a backup plan, especially when you're not able to do a site survey. And in these cases, I when we do these parties from our vantage point, we don't go out ahead of time. We're not able to go out and do a site survey ahead
Right.
of time and look at it ourselves. We're relying on our client. Our client will go out and do the site survey, but really in a non-technical manner, and so I'm thinking about all these other contingencies in the back end and making sure that I keep the setup as clean and as simple and as straightforward as possible so that when I get on site, and normally I'll have maybe 2, maybe 3 hours before we have to go live. So I better make sure my setup works at least in preparation so that when I go on site, make sure that my part of it works and hopefully the part that we're relying on a vendor, their monitors work and everything goes well. And that in this particular case it didn't, but we were able to have some type of backup plan where at least we got I think we had 4 monitors that night. We had 3 of them working, 2 of them with individual laptops that we just had the sponsored messages running with no Instagram, and then 1 monitor that I was feeding directly with the Wirecast gear without any using any of their equipment, and then 1 monitor that was further away that we just went dark with. At least we salvaged it,
Mhm.
but again, these are like you were mentioning, Steven, these are the kind of the dangers of going on the road and what you run into, the unforeseen stuff, so
I'm gonna
that's
have
Atlanta.
I'm gonna have to do for next week, guys. I'm gonna have to dig up the footage of Leipzig, Germany. Now, if you want to see something that went off without a
Oh,
hitch,
yeah.
Marty and I took the time ahead of time. Like he said, normally he doesn't get to go in and do this, but we actually presented a couple. What was it, a couple of years, 2 or 3 years ago?
Yep. D
S-
about just, it's about 3 I think it was 2016. So
Okay,
3 we just passing the 3-year anniversary, yeah.
so Marty was on location in Leipzig, Germany, and myself, Mark, were in the States here, and they put us up on the big wall with the double box, just like we're seeing now, and actually triple box. Marty was on the stage. He could interact with us. The audience could interact with us, and we could interact with the audience. And we showed them essentially how you could do this. But we had no idea going into this. I mean, you're traveling, so you took what you thought may happen, and you and I
Yep,
had discussed about audio latency ahead of time. We're like, we could end up with some audio latency sync issues because you're going halfway around the world. So we took that
right.
into consideration. We got us the devices to at the time Wirecast didn't have the feature built into it where you could delay the audio for what we needed. So we had to get a hardware device to do it. So um but all in all, it turned out really good, and they were super impressed. But I'm gonna have to dig that footage up for next week so we could show that because we were scared to death. I mean, the unforeseen, right?
Yeah, and this goes along a lot of the stuff that you're describing goes along with the 90-10 rule, fits very nicely into it, where most of the work, 90% of the work happens before the event. And then the actual event, and in this case, what you're describing is the Lipstick event, the remote broadcast. We kind of combine different technologies. Or when I'm on the road doing these parties in venue video, that last 10% is the actual show. That's what people see. And the goal is that hopefully the party goers or the audience or whoever the audience is sees it as this kind of a seamless production where they say, "Oh, and you make it look easy, right?" But the reason why it does is that you're taking that 90% and you're going through all the things like Stephen, when you're describing the audio delay, we actually sat down a few months before we started mapping this thing out, and we started going through all these different scenarios as far as like what do we do in venue? Because how do we get to show the video? What's the delay? And all
Mm-hmm.
these myriad of questions, and then what if this doesn't work? And then plan A, plan B, plan C, all the way down the list. Because when you mentioned that's another scenario where, where I'm going into a situation where I don't have an opportunity to do a site survey ahead of time. And for those of you watching, a site survey, what I mean by that is the ability to go into a venue that you're gonna be working at and actually do a survey. Look around and do things like, what's the layout? Bring in your tape measure, measure out,
Mhm.
if you're gonna be placing monitors, where are they gonna go? Where's your
Mhm.
cable runs? Where's your power drops? If you're gonna do live broadcasting, where's your internet? Yeah, all that stuff. You make a list, and I have a punch list, and I go through it, and where's everything gonna go? And you just and especially if you have a venue manager, you want them there, asking them all these questions, making sure you have everything ready to go. But in these situations, I don't have an opportunity. I'm relying on third party. So your preparation is even more important because you really have to make sure everything works. And also your setup, make sure your setup works. So, I mean,
Mhm.
maybe Steven, maybe before I go to the Denver video, maybe I'll go through some of these points. I'm not sure some of these points I talk about and what some of the things I think about before I go on the road here.
No, I think
But
that's
preparation's def-
I think you should because
beca-
I think that's definitely something that, people need to know.
yes. So with these shows here, obviously, now in Denver and Atlanta, you're taking a flight. So, packing and efficiency is key. So what you want to do is okay, for my situation is, and this is why the Wirecast gear is so good, is I'm able to take that and it fits into a carry-on, and I realize my video is crap. Hopefully you can hear me. My
Yep, we
video
got you, we got you.
is
It'll fix
okay.
itself.
Um, but what's great about the Wirecast gear is it fits into a standard carry-on. So I do have the option of whether carrying it onto the plane itself or checking it. Now, in my case, since I have to bring multiple bags, I check it. So I had the Wirecast gear, and I used some of the packing material that came with it to kind of keep it insulated and without it jostling around. But it's a pretty rugged piece of gear. And then I'll throw in the power cord. I'll throw in a couple of cables, and that's about it. And then I'll check it. And then so this time when we're going to Denver, this was last week when Denver had the snow. So we were left on a Tuesday and we were connecting through Chicago. And of course, when we get to Chicago, our connection was canceled. But
Oh,
literally when I was running to the
man.
gate. Right? So luckily, I'm flying Southwest, luckily, and I've had good luck with Southwest. Luckily, there's a lot of flights to come out of Chicago to Denver. So, way it worked out actually worked out pretty well, where we were able to get on actually a slightly earlier flight, and they just switched us over. So I ran to the gate with about 10 minutes to spare and got on the plane, and then got to with a little bit of delay. We had a little window there because it was snowing in Denver. But make a long story short, we got to Denver, and I'll tell you, man, it was like the previous weekend, it was 70 degrees there. And anybody familiar with Denver weather, it's very up and down. It could be gorgeous or it could be snowing. And we picked the time when it was coming out of a really gorgeous weekend. It was snowing. It was 10 degrees. We're at the airport. And because my flight was canceled, and this is what you take the chance of checking your bag. The bag did not come in on the flight that I was on, of course.
Ugh.
It came in on a different flight, but it came in on a different flight, so I went to the baggage office. I ended up having to wait at the airport for a couple hours instead of just going to the hotel, so we waited there and I got some work done. But the reason I tell that story is in the preparation. So, I tell you, I checked the Wirecast gear, but what it happens if it gets lost or if it gets delayed or if I don't have my equipment by the time I do the show. Now, always go in the day before to have a little buffer. So the show was the next day. So normally and that takes care of right there. But say if I didn't have my gear, well, then I have a MacBook Pro, and I have Wirecast on that as well. And that's how I used to do these shows. I used to use it off of my MacBook Pro, but so I keep that as a carry-on. So I always have a backup. So if I didn't have the Wirecast gear, could I still do the show? And the answer is yes, I
Yeah.
could still do it. Now, it may be where I might not be able to bring in the Instagram feed because I use a separate computer, but I'm able to do the sponsor messages, which is the most important thing of the show. So I'm still able to get the HDMI out and still able to do the show, but I have a backup plan. I always have a plan B with going on location because you cannot control it. The other thing is, you want to keep, as I said, you want to keep things compact, and luckily this day and age, you can. The Wirecast gear, it's it fits in a carry-on, so it's not too bad.
Mhm.
Obviously, a MacBook is fairly compact, you can take that on carry-on. Um, but you want to keep things compact, you wanna keep things efficient, right? The other thing is, if you're going on a site, cables, cables, cables. There's the gear, and that's the new gear. Now I'm running with the first generation gear, which is fantastic for these shows, the new gear, and we'll get into as I think as 2020 goes on, Stephen, we'll certainly talk more about this box, but I have to say that, Telestream has done a tremendous job listening to people, the users, and saying, "What can we do in version 2?" And I know we got a lot of to talk about in 2020 with version
I
2. Um,
I was sitting here teasing
but I will
Marty.
say this what was that?
I was sitting here teasing you earlier. I was like, "Boy, Telestream's created a fanboy with you."
Oh, man. I'm telling you, and these in-venue shows, I mean, it's not about now we could go live, the live streaming is all built in, but this particular use case that I'm talking about, we do these in-venue shows, and Wirecast Gear is fantastic for that. You know, we're showing sponsor message and this would work in a conference. If you're doing a conference and you need to show, video messaging on screens. I mean, back in the day, it used to be where you'd actually do hard signs and you'd hang up signs all around. Now, you can use video monitors and you
Mhm.
can change out the signage any way, you can make it very interactive. So so all when you're doing these events, and this goes for anything, any event, you can put whatever you want on the screen, you know? So we do put video on the screen. We do intermix it with Instagram and all that, and it gives a very interactive look, and the target market for these parties are younger people that are very used to this, and they're taking the Instagram pictures, and we're able to show the Instagram feed in real time, and they'll post it to these, and hashtag for this particular event was 5G done right. It was promoting 5G and the rollout of 5G,
Mhm.
and so as they take it, they can actually see it on the screen. I can show you what Denver
Yeah,
looked like.
let
Let me just roll some
bef
video
wait,
here.
before you go to that, before
Oh,
they go that,
yep,
um, so traditionally, the Wirecast Gearbox was developed to be a broadcasting tool. You took it as well as other people. If you're when you see this video, Marty's using this in a very unique workflow. Something that I hadn't even really like. It's digital signage. It's something I hadn't even really
yep.
given any thought to. But when you watch this video, it may spark some interest in you to maybe do this with your business for social media, for marketing. Well, we're on social. That's why we're doing it. So take a look at this, Marty.
Exactly. So let me roll this video here. So this gives you an idea. So this is the same setup you saw in the Atlanta. So this is a little bit dark here, but this gives you an idea. This is actually during the party itself. So what you're seeing there is the actual Wirecast interface with the traditional layers. You're seeing a live Instagram feed. A lot of people shoot video on Instagram, and so on the right you see the program, and on the left you see the preview, and you'll see it change in a little bit there to one of the sponsored messages. And what I do here is I use Wirecast and I create a playlist and I automate it. So there it goes to a sponsored message. So fast loading is promoting 5G. And I'm able to set this up in advance and it's a looping playlist. So I alternate and I use the way I get the Instagram feed in is I just have my MacBook and I bring it in via one of the HDMI inputs. And I use I actually just bring it directly in and it's got the capture card in the Wirecast gear. And so I'm able to show this Instagram feed live in real time. This is a service that actually updates in real time. So as people post it, it goes up on the screen. They like to see it, and then I alternate with sponsored messages. Sometimes I'll add in this particular playlist. I actually added in Samsung was one of the sponsors, so we had a kind of a video commercial promoting the S10. Now you see the overall view of the venue, and on the right hand side you'll see some of the monitors there, and this was just gives you an idea of the venue that we were working in. It's a very modern style rooftop venue. Now, this was in Denver. It was like 15 degrees, so it was all inside. On the side there, you'll see the 2 monitors as it comes into view here. And so normally the monitors aren't placed that closely, but this particular venue, the way it was, we had to place the monitors close. But this gives you an idea. So this is I'm actually feeding these monitors from the Wirecast gear, and you can see that we're showing the Instagram feed in real time. People can see it come up on the screens, and it gives you an idea of how we use this in venue. So and you see the signage there. Now this just freezes. I'll leave it on the shot here so you guys can see it, and I'll describe it. but it gives you an idea of what's possible. So instead of using now the Wirecast gear is certainly capable of doing a stream. I could do a live stream at the same time showing this in venue. I could stream out to Facebook or YouTube. I can add another camera and do a show. We, in fact, Stephen, we did a show, I
Mhm.
believe, in Pittsburgh that I did some live streaming for as well. So we can combine different things. But as you're describing, this is a very specific use case of using the Wirecast gear, and again, we think about live streaming to YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, but this is basically live streaming to in venue. And this particular use case was a party, and we're showing Instagram sponsored messages on various um, monitors. But you could also do it at a conference. And again, like you mentioned, signage now is digital, and it's not hard printed signs. And what that enables you to do, in fact, I'll give you an example. At the Denver show, the original signage I got from Verizon had font that was not part of their brand. In fact, it was an earlier version of the signage. And when we got on site, the some of the Verizon people saying, "Oh, do you have the latest, versions of these signs?" I go, "Well, no, this is what you gave me." "Oh, if we got it, can you switch it?" "Yeah, just if you can get it, just, if you can save it as individual JPEGs, email it to me, and
Mhm.
then I'll swap them out on site." And that's what I did. I actually literally, like, a half hour before we started, he sent me the new signage, and it was the same video, it's just a different font that they use. I was able to take those individual JPEGs and just swap them into the playlist and, using a USB key, and it made it very easy. And again, having the Wirecast gear, I cannot tell you, and that freed up my laptop, and then I'm able to do other things where I'm able to actually download and create, in fact, I actually had to create a additional PowerPoint because we had a at that venue, we didn't see it in the video, we had a projecting screen that was a projector that was over the bar, and the way that the video you can't see it, there was a large screen on the side, and we were able to feed that projector separately. We weren't able to feed it from the gear, and I used another laptop, and I created a PowerPoint but I was able to do it on site, and because I had the gear, it freed up my computer, and I'm able to do all these other things, and I'm also able to deal with these things where I didn't know that I was gonna have to swap out these things ahead of time.
Mhm.
And again, that's leaving you some wiggle room because you don't know what you're gonna get when you get on these sites. So, again, being prepared for the unexpected is key, and that's
Mhm.
why I love using the gear because it gives me 2 different ways to do these shows. So I can do it from my laptop using Wirecast, but now I have the gear with a dedicated box. So now it gives me another option to be able to deal with any unforeseen. So, well, say if I needed to put up a late comings or say if I needed to actually create a sign on the spot. Maybe we do a giveaway, so maybe we had a different prize, and I had to do an edit and pop in and swap in the edited sign. I'm able to do that actually during the show, and then it doesn't affect the show. I'm able to run the show,
Mhm.
able to do any of my work ahead, on the side, and then just bring it into the show separately. So it keeps things separate. But man, that I it's funny you say I'm walking commercial for the gear. I'm telling you, man, it is that use case it just makes my life a heck of a lot easier versus just using a laptop. It's fantastic,
Well,
and
and
plus, the performance is there.
I was gonna say, and then you come back to studio, you plug it back in, and
Yes.
you're ready to go for the show. It's not like you have to reconfigure anything because it's just a different
Yes.
document in
It
Wirecast.
it's funny you mentioned that too because literally I unplug a couple of connections, and I'm using the gear right now to come into your show right now. So, it's that easy. I take it, put it on the road, put it back, plug everything in, ready to go, and it makes it very, very easy. Plus, I mean, again, I'm the PTZ camera I'm using here in the studio, I bring in via HDMI via the capture card. But you also have with the gear, you also have the NDI option. So you have plenty of options to work with.
Right.
But yeah, it's fantastic for that. It just makes everything so much easier. You know it's gonna work, you know?
So for future, because we always thank Telestream for allowing us to do this broadcast here, but maybe we should say thank you to Marty for talking about the gear so much that you guys want to. No, I'm teasing.
Oh,
I'm teasing. But um, George Marshall in the chat room, he says, we shoot 3 cameras in the TV radio station studio that we have. Wirecast is a runoff on the iMac, and we used a Roland 4-channel HDMI switcher out of the HDMI splitter that goes to 2 monitors for our 2 co-hosts. So he has it set up where I guess he's putting 2 monitors behind with the co-hosts in them, and I mean, there's so much versatility that you can do with it, however you want to do it. But again, you're eliminating factors of problems, right? Because um, you're doing everything kind of all in one location, like all the broadcasting, streaming, video distributions all done in one box, and you're using other boxes for
Yep.
PowerPoint and Twitter, and you said Instagram integration on your MacBook. So
Yep.
you're limiting points of failure. And I think if I could tell anybody anything, if you've seen Marty's stuff and you sat there and you go, you know what, he's using so many different machines. The more machines you use within reason, you limit the points of failure. That's one of the reasons that doing this show, we have separate machines that are doing separate things. So that way, like the old, what is it, the proverbial saying is don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? So we
Yep.
try not to do that. So if you're sitting there surfing on a machine that you're broadcasting out of, chances are you just increased your odds of something crashing. Because I mean, when you deal with web video, whether you're surfing on Facebook or anything, it could make the system unstable, and you don't really want to do that for a broadcast machine. My Wirecast gear, all it does is broadcast. I put nothing else on it. That's all it does. It streams. I play my playlist on it. And I'm sure, Marty, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you're at these venues, you're not sitting there surfing on the Wirecast gearbox. You're not sitting there doing other things. You're just doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Now I will say it is capable of that.
Oh,
for
of course.
example, I do have a browser window open on this Wirecast gear to get into your neural net system, so it's capable of that.
Right.
But the other thing is, like, with a Wirecast gear box, that kind of solution, especially if you're doing this professionally, you know it's gonna work. It's got enough horsepower, in fact, I run a MacBook Pro, a 15-inch, pretty beefy machine, but the way this thing is set up, it's the advantage of it being, embedded Wirecast. It's finally, it's tuned, it's ready to go. They're made for each other. And I noticed that on the performance where, even the transitions, even in venue, it's very smooth. It just runs really smooth. I noticed that versus like, sometimes you're not too sure. You got to be careful how many things you plug in. You just got to be a little more careful. You really got to know what you're doing, but that's the advantage of using a box where it's one, like you said, one less thing to worry
Hmm.
about because everything's there. That piece of it's all taken care of, and then you're bringing other things in. You got the capture card, and then you're bringing it all in, and then it's going to work. But I noticed that with certainly this version of the gear, the performance is there. It drives multiple monitors. There's never been a problem in these venues.
Hmm.
And so it's funny because we got several more of these parties to go. In fact, in a couple of weeks we're in New York City, and then we're headed to my. So I'll do other video. It'll be
Oh,
interesting how
absolutely.
this thing works.
And then
But
people
that's
can
the
also
amazing thing with the performance.
people can also see the troubles and trials that you run into at these different parties as we show them when you come back. So this is a one of those ongoing sagas that we're going to find out, because there might be some other things. Hopefully everything goes as planned. So you're here next week, right? And I think Jeff is here
Yep.
next week. So the three of
Uh
us
oh.
will once again be together as a whole again. So that'll put the conspiracy away.
So put the rumors away.
But the reason I said that is we had somebody that sent in a workflow video, and I kindly thanked the person via email. They sent it in, and I said, we're probably not going to use it this week on the show, only because I knew you were going to be showing some stuff of being on location. So next week, we are going to spend some time looking at this setup. And guys out there, ladies out there, send in your setups. We want to see them. We want to, if you need help with your setup, send us a short 2 to 3 minute video. If it's one of those things where you'd like to come on and talk about your setup and how you're doing things, even if you're doing it and you think it's like the best way possible, hey, we don't have all the answers. We've got a lot of experience, but hey, there's more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak. So
Yep.
if you want to submit a video, send it to me. Stephen H at telestream.net. We're happy to take a look at it. We'll get it out to the guys, and we're happy to have you come on the show and walk us through your setup. I mean, Marty, we always have a ton of fun looking at these setups.
That's the whole point of the show. That's what's fun about doing. I can't wait to see this setup. I love looking at that stuff. So
Also,
absolutely.
if you are out there and you have a marketing aspect where you think that you've kind of, and I don't want to say it like this, but you think that you've cracked the proverbial seal on how to get your online video out and market it in a good way. If that is you, get in contact. We'd love to have you come on the show. Tell us how you're marketing your online video. Tell us the ways that you think that you've been successful at doing this, because again, part of the show is to help everybody with marketing your video, your professional video. From that standpoint, not just producing the high end video, but we'd love to see and learn about, and I'm sure the audience would love to learn about how to also market that. So we've got a few shows coming up internally that we're gonna have some folks on, but we'd really like to see from the community as well. I think that would be a whole lot of fun, right?
Absolutely. That sounds great.
All right, guys. Well, that about wraps up today's show, and we hope to see you guys next week again. And just a reminder, Thanksgiving week, which is the 28th this year, is a Thursday. We will not be here doing a show. We'll be spending time with friends and family, and as I hope you all will be doing. So we will be doing the show on the 27th. It's a Wednesday. It's the day before Thanksgiving. So that week and that week only, we will be live on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. So make sure you guys tune in. Remember that, and we'll let you know. Also coming up the end of the year, the last show of the year is going to be December 19th, I believe, Marty, right? Am I correct in stating that? I think it's the
Yeah,
19th.
you're right.
The
Yep.
19th. So the 19th will be the last show of the year, and we'll be back in January for a whole new season, a whole new shakeup, a whole new awesome stuff. So that's coming up. So we want to just kind of remind you so you can plan your days accordingly. But the last show, so get your videos in, get your setups in, get your applications in, whatever you want to call it, to come on the show. We'd love to hear from you, love to see from you. That's all coming up, so we'll remind you as the shows progress. And remember, you can always, if you missed half the show, you can go back and watch us on YouTube. Usually tomorrow it'll be up, or Vimeo. Go subscribe to the Telestream YouTube channel. That's where we upload all the videos. Also follow us on Facebook and like our page, Telestream Wirecast, and also the Telestream page. And don't forget to go over to LinkedIn and like the page there. We stream live there every week as well. So we really appreciate everybody coming out. We're working on getting some podcasts up so you can subscribe to the show. A lot of cool things coming in 2020. We're excited. We can't wait. But Marty, it's time to bid adieu, and want to thank you for coming on here and being with us.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Pleasure.
Guys, check out Marty over at podjam.tv, and you pretty much can find him. Just look up Marty McPadden. He's all over the place. So, and me, you guys know where to find me at. Thetechbuzz.net is my personal page, but I'm here. You can find me. Just look up my name. And guys, until next time, we'll see you. Make sure you stay social, stay vigilant, and have a great day.